It's simple. We kill the Batman.
If it's so simple, why haven't you done it already?
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't hear. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. And by the way, the most authentic voice needs the most authentic community. Is that you? Well, I hope so. How well do you know the Jay Slater case? So here's a question. Is it true that Jay left the Airbnb with a 1% battery, with a battery on 1%? Leave your answer now in the comments. Before we get to the rest of this analysis, if you haven't subscribed, please do. If you're enjoying this analysis, please like, share, leave a comment. Bear in mind the Baldwin trial starts at 8:30 local time, which is 4:30 my time, which is about 3:30, I think, UK time. So make sure I will be covering it live. It should be very interesting. And it is likely, I think, that Baldwin will be asked to testify. Okay, and let's get started. So there's an article in The Sun, Jay Charger Riddle, mystery that Jay left with 1% battery. At 7:30 a.m., Jay posted a Snapchat of himself on the steps, presumably smoking a Camel cigarette that Johnny Vegas had given to him. This suggests that at 7:30 a.m., he'd already taken the phone off the charger, and perhaps at that point he charged it up to 10% or 15% and reckoned that would be enough, which would last an hour or so, enough time to get him to his hotel. Now, 45 minutes later, and by now he's far afield, he's up the road and near the viewpoint. This is where and when it begins to sink in that he's nowhere near his hotel. We know that Jay made a panic call to Lucy at 8:15 a.m., telling her he was terrified that someone was after him and that, hold on, that's not what he said. He told her that his phone was on 1% and he was lost and needed water. That was what he said. And this means that his phone had run down to 1% over about 45 minutes. And could even be longer. I mean, that's just the time that he left the Airbnb. He may actually have been on the phone at inside the Airbnb doing other things. And now let's face it, also he'd been Snapchatting while out and about, and he was probably burning mobile data in mountainous terrain, which would sometimes, I think, be challenged to pick up a signal while walking, and that presumably consumed more juice than usual. But the point is that Jay didn't leave the Airbnb with 1%. He likely left it with 10% or maybe 5%. And he had perhaps used some of the charged battery, as I say, while he was on the couch looking at photos from the evening while awake at night. Many of us do that. And then deciding to head out first thing on the first bus. Maybe Google that, buses from Muscat. And so when he gets to the viewpoint, he basically finds that his access to his phone has a deadline. If he had more time, he could study Google Maps, he could perhaps call a cab. Have you ever been in a situation where you're out and about, you need to make heavy and constant use of your phone? You want to take photos, you want to communicate, you need to navigate, but you have almost no battery. But you're kind of on the move, right? I was at 10 airports in America over the past 7 weeks or so in May and June, and often you just run out of juice, right? And so what can you do in a situation like that? Well, you can turn it off to conserve power. You can put it in airplane mode so it's not constantly searching for signals, which also drains the power. But none of this really does much to delay the inevitable. And in Jay's case, his problem is he's lost and he has to prioritize what to do. When you're lost, that's really when you need to use your phone a lot. And I think also if if you have your phone, if you don't have a lot of power on your phone and you're using Google Maps and you are navigating using Google Maps, it consumes, gobbles up a lot more battery power than usual. Google Maps, I mean. And in any event, he's now lost. He's got to prioritize what to do. And while he's doing that, the phone runs out of juice. I mean, he's actually on a call when the phone runs out of juice. Now, anyone who is lost with a phone knows the obvious thing is to head to Google Maps. And although Jay does this, he's sort of on the phone with two of his buddies. He's not taking things all that seriously because he doesn't really know what situation he's in. And while they're talking, he actually overrules what the GPS data is saying. On the one hand, it doesn't seem like a big deal. It's a few minutes drive to his hotel. On the other, it says it's a really long walk. But what if that's an error? And what if the idea is that, well, it's a long walk if you follow this ribbon of tar? What if you did something else? Now, a young person would be more likely to think that way, to overrule facts and geography from a position of ignorance. And clearly, all he really needed to do was study Google Maps for a few minutes, except that he didn't have a few minutes. And this may also be why a witness said that he was walking fast. Why? Because he was trying to get where he needed to go while his battery was still on. He knew he was running out of time. And so it's easy to get bogged down in all of this and miss the alternative, that Jay's out there on the road, possibly turning his phone completely off to save the battery, then turn it on later on to see where he is. But because of this intermittent approach, he doesn't have a very clear, unambiguous idea of where he is. And I've done that myself many times. I've been at airports often, tried to save my phone battery so I can take photos or video from the passenger window. And so what does he have around him to navigate in the meantime? Well, only this. This is a big deal. This display map at the roadside, at the viewpoint, this is the number 8 clue we all missed. This is where his phone pings, but it also allows him to see where he is. He's got enough time to stand there and take it in. And what does he see? What does he see there that's not on Google Maps? Because most likely this map provides additional information besides the road, things like hiking trails. And that's when the thought occurs to Jay to go off the road. This is when it happens. After seeing this map, the thought occurs to Jay to go off the road in the direction of the sea. It makes sense for 3 reasons. The situation is urgent. And in terms of that urgency, Jay needs water, he's lost, and his phone is dead. That's the first. Second, because of time constraints and the lay of the land, the road is kind of a tedious ribbon curving and switching back on itself. And Jay figures if he can just cut across, he can save a lot of time and effort. In a real sense, the flat phone battery is an analogy for his own body starting to shut down. Whatever he's going to do, he needs to do quickly before that happens. Third, it's downhill all the way. From where he's standing, it's downhill all the way. And if he heads to the coast, it really is downhill all the way. And that's not going to be that much of an effort. If he just follows the lay of the land, follows the paths, it's not going to take long. And so that sign looking down to the sea from the viewpoint towards the gorges had to be tempting because it was revealing all sorts of paths and they're all going downhill. And what does a tired, thirsty person need who is on foot? Downhills, paths of least resistance, not uphills. And so from a certain point of view, this makes sense, except it was a critical error for Jay to leave the road to begin with. And possibly after leaving the road and taking a path, he left the path as well. Panicked and becoming more alarmed as he went, walking may have led to running. And if he was in the shade of a windy gorge in shorts fairly early in the morning without a blanket, we can see just how, walking quickly or wanting to run would be a practical way of keeping warm and getting where he needed to go sooner. But at the same time, the worst possible thing he could do in that situation. I'm not going to take it further than that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.